Welcome to Hoystory On Air again. This is the fifth one of these, season 1, episode 5. Starting to hit my stride, I think, so we'll see how this works out. So, here's what we got. Today's show: Rod on the right, David French continuing his leftward shift, a few notes on Arctic frost, Biden's dementia, and media notes. So let's start out with this. Tucker Carlson, I want to say 15 years ago, would absolutely rip to shreds the Tucker Carlson of today. We got a problem on the political right. We got a problem with anti-Semitism. We got a problem with pro-dictators, Tucker Carlson did what can best be described as a tongue bath with Vladimir Putin. He sucks up to the Qataris. They pay him hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. He probably should be registered under Foreign Agents Registration Act. And then earlier this week, he went on air on his show to talk with Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is he's a young David Duke. He is a kid who shouldn't have the following he does. He's disgusting. He's hateful. And Tucker Carlson had an interview, and did he push back in this interview? Did he challenge Nick Fuentes? No, he did the same thing. Oh, this is wonderful. Anyways, so National Review has an editorial on this. Fuentes has engaged in Holocaust denial. He called Adolf Hitler really effing cool and said that if his movement gained power, it would execute perfidious Jews. National Review notes Carlson didn't even need to go back through old clips to find objectionable statements. In his appearance, Fuentes stated that the big challenge to unifying the country against tribal interests was organized Jewry in America. And he expressed admiration for Soviet butcher Joseph Stalin. No pushback. They note, can't be said that Carlson's interviewing style was simply to let his guests speak. In June, Carlson held a combative interview with Senator Ted Cruz that descended into an extended shouting match. Why? Because Cruz supports Israel. As most conservatives should. From a practical standpoint, they are the only democracy in the Middle East. They are our friend. They do a lot of stuff for us. The whole, pager incident, kind of decapitating Hezbollah, that benefits us. Hezbollah is the one who killed, 200 plus Marines in Beirut several decades ago. That terrorist organization is no friend of ours, and they clean that stuff up for us. They've worked with us on containing Iran's nuclear program. We bombed it. They and us apparently were together in creating this worm that basically screwed up the computer-controlled centrifuges that was enriching uranium in Iran. Yeah, and then you got Carlson stated during his interview that he thinks Cruz, Mike Huckabee, and other figures who are Christian and support Israel have been infected by a brain virus. About these Christian Zionists, he said, I dislike them more than anybody because it's Christian heresy and I'm offended by that as a Christian. Bolshevik storytelling. Tucker, I don't know how to judge Tucker's, Christianity. But the whole idea that we should be siding with Qatar or Qatar or whatever you want to call them, and Putin and this stuff, and that people supporting Jews in the Holy Land are it's a heresy. He needs to read his Bible a bit more, and not the Nick Fuentes garbage version. Now that Charlie Kirk's gone, Tucker Carlson is like the number one speaker with Turning Point USA. That should change. That needs to stop. He shouldn't have been invited. He shouldn't have been invited to speak at Kirk's memorial service. Tucker Carlson is not what conservatism should be going forward. It's not even MAGA. Donald Trump is a bigger supporter of Israel than Tucker Carlson. Certainly, Fuentes wins. I think Trump had dinner with Fuentes like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe not that long. But Fuentes was, we got to, my job is to stop Trump from getting elected. Well, that didn't succeed. But Trump's been probably the most pro-Israel president in our history. And Tucker's just off his rocker. The problem is it's spreading. We had this here from Kevin Roberts, who is the president of the Heritage Foundation, which I used to have a lot of respect for. I thought that they were, right on a lot of things. I want you to listen to this because this is crazy.
I'll have more to say on this in the coming days, but today I want to be clear about one thing. Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic. And of course, anti-Semitism should be condemned. My loyalty as a Christian and as an American is to Christ first and to America always. When it serves the interests of the United States to cooperate with Israel and other allies, we should do so, with partnerships on security, intelligence, and technology. But when it doesn't, conservatives should feel no obligation to reflexively support any foreign government, no matter how loud the pressure becomes from the globalist class or from their mouthpieces in Washington. The Heritage Foundation didn't become the intellectual backbone of the conservative movement by canceling our own people or policing the consciences of Christians. And we won't start doing that now. We don't take direction from comments on X, though we are grateful for the robust free speech debate. We also don't take direction from members or donors, though we are inherently grateful for their support. And we're adding more every day. This is the robust debate we invite with our colleagues, our movement friends, our members, and the American public. We will always defend truth. We will always defend America, and we will always defend our friends against the slander of bad actors who serve someone else's agenda. That includes Tucker Carlson, who remains, and as I have said before, always will be a close friend of the Heritage Foundation. The venomous coalition.
Really? Is there nothing that Tucker could do that would cause you to give him the boot? Nothing. You're always going to support him. Really? How far off the deep end does he have to go? And here we get, I've never been part of this before, but I get to be part of the venomous coalition.
Attacking him or sowing division. Their attempt to cancel him will fail. Most importantly, the American people expect us to be focusing on our political adversaries on the left, not attacking our friends on the right. I disagree with, and even abhor, things that Nick Fuentes says. But canceling him is not the answer either. When we disagree with a person's thoughts and opinions, we challenge those ideas in debate. And we have seen success in.
Here's the thing. Tucker got him on for a couple hours. He didn't challenge him. I pointed out that Atlantic article the other day regarding the Maine Senate candidate, Graham Plattner, who had the Totenkopf tattoo on his chest. Nazi tattoo. And the Atlantic article was, how big does the tent need to be? I'm all for a big tent. I'm all for allying with people who are on my side politically 51% of the time. But not Nazis, not Stalin lovers, not people who want to assassinate perfidious Jews when they get in power. There's a limit to the size of the tent. And that's all there is to it. This is, the idea, we're canceling them. Well, I don't want the government to cut off his access. I don't want YouTube to cut off his access. But I think that we should be making an effort to marginalize him. I mean, what did National Review do with the John Birch Society? The Birchers are beyond the pale. Nick Fuentes is beyond the pale. Tucker Carlson has arrived at the point where he's beyond the pale. Again, 15 years ago, if you showed Tucker Carlson and you morphed you put the screen in shadow and you tweaked the audio and played that to Tucker Carlson 15 years ago, I think he'd be absolutely outraged. Not now. People morph into different things. We'll get to David French here in a couple of minutes. We got to have standards. An ever bigger tent is not the case. And there's got to be some point at which you cut people off because they are crazy or nuts or they're doing the wrong thing. You can try and correct them. If they persist, you got to let them go. Continuing.
This approach as we continue to dismantle the vile ideas of the left. As my friend Vice President Vance said last night, what I am not okay with is any country coming before the interest of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we are American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's where our allegiance lies, and that's where it will stay.
Yeah, no, this is, it's not acceptable. Elise Shapiro, disappointed Tucker's not on the right anymore, just gone crazy, and Fuentes definitely shouldn't be welcome in anything called a conservative movement. Dang straight. Why is Tucker allowed to declare he hates entire segments of the mainstream conservative movement? We need to blithely defend him because friendship is special. Look, I'm all for, getting together on the right and making sure we, unite to defeat the worst parts of the left. But I'm not joining with the Nazis. Okay? I'm not joining with the anti-Semites. That's not happening. Jim Garrity over at National Review, Morning Jolt, has more on this. Welcome this. Again, Carlson's background, kiss butt to the Iranian president. Carlson predicted that when Trump hit Iran's nuclear sites, that this was going to cause World War III and tens of thousands of American soldiers were going to die. Didn't happen. Okay? He probably wished it happened. It didn't happen. Okay? So and again, Christian Scientists, seriously. You list a whole bunch of people here that you should hate more than, Christian Scientists, telemarketers, certainly. CrossFitters, almost undoubtedly. No, this is wrong. Okay, I'd like to challenge Fuentes' idea that for those who worship false gods, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty straight up. This is what Fuentes said. I'm far more concerned about that than non-white people or mass migration. These people that are meeting with demons and engaging in this sort of witchcraft and stuff, and these people suppressing the name of Christ and suppressing Christianity, they must be absolutely annihilated when we take power. We need to put a crucifix in every home, in every room, in every school, in every government office to signal Christ's reign over our country. This is God's country. That's not how this country works. And that's not how Christianity works. Christianity isn't about shoving this stuff down people's throats, whether they believe or not. Nick Fuentes shows no signs of being a Christian. By your fruit you will know them. He ain't got no fruit. Not fruit you can eat, it's poison. All he is dealing with is poison. Garrity writes, now listen here, you little schmuck. country is run on religious freedom from the start, including separation of church and state. And the moment you start strong-arming people and forcing them to follow Christ or face bodily harm, the first guy who will tell you to knock it off is Jesus Christ. He's right. And Heritage Foundation's Kevin Roberts, you think this twerp is somebody that serious thinkers of the modern right should spend a lot of time engaging with? No. No, this is insane. There's more at Washington Free Beacon. 27, Fuentes is a 27-year-old Hitler and Stalin supporter. The guy's disgusting. You shouldn't, I wouldn't platform him even if it was to wipe the floor with him. Seriously. Will Chamberlain over on X, with regard to the heritage statement, this statement sucks and is traceable to a single sentence. The venomous coalition attacking Tucker are sowing division. Here I am sowing division because I'm going to divide it. I don't want those guys here. Okay? The coalition didn't have a chummy-friendly podcast with a guy who's talked about giving the death penalty to perfidious Jews and remarked themselves that they despise Christian Zionists. That was Tucker. As I've discussed in previous posts, I can think of few things more divisive than that. This is simply a gratuitous insult to right-wing Jews and right-wing supporters of Israel of all stripes. There isn't a coalition of people attacking Tucker out of nowhere. Just a bunch of normal right-wingers who are rightly outraged by Tucker's own insults. Nothing about rejecting cancel culture or even defending heritage continuing to associate with Tucker required calling fellow conservatives venomous. Yeah. I hate to say this guy is leading Heritage Foundation. You take pride in not listening to donors or supporters. Well, you'll have fewer of them to listen to. Okay? This is just foolish. There is no reason to try and capture that audience. One of the research fellows at Heritage, if you look at the retweets, a lot of people have been retweeting this. Nazis are bad. Should go without saying. It really should go without saying. But that's what you got to deal with. Not sure what to say. Not sure what to tell you. You're not going to get me supporting Nick Fuentes. You're not going to get me trying to ally with Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson for that matter. They used to be, Carlson used to be on the right. He's gone. He's left it. He's joined some, who knows how to best describe him. But it's not the conservatism that I grew up with or signed on for a long time ago. Moving along. David French is former writer for National Review. Then he went on to, not the Bulwark, the Dispatch, Jonah Goldberg's new kind of anti-never Trump, anti-Trump publication. I never voted for Trump, not a single time. But I can look at him and say, he does some good things, he does some bad things. And I can judge those two things without taking the view that everything he says is bad or everything he says is as if it had been come down on tablets. So, inscribed by God. There's a middle. You can walk through the middle. David French is now at the New York Times. Like many who are at the New York Times editorial pages, news pages too. The big danger for them is the conservative movement, the right, Trump, definitely. But David French he goes on, he writes in the New York Times, and he is their resident conservative who criticizes only the right. He doesn't criticize the left. He makes the left feel better about their bigotries and their biases. He tweeted here, 10 years ago, many of us started warning about the rise of the alt-right, and we were told to shut up and focus on the left. Well, now anti-Semitism, racism, and conspiracies are exploding all over the right, especially with young Republicans, with some of the biggest voices in America amplifying the most grotesque bigotry. There are no dog whistles any longer, only bullhorns. Some folks on the right are finally waking up and realizing that their obsessions with the woke left blinded them to the monsters in their midst. I hope it's not too late. I can do both. Okay, there are monsters on the horseshoe theory. It's like a horseshoe. You get farther along the far right, they get nuttier and closer to the extremes of the far left. It's a horseshoe. I can do both. David French, yep, been warning about the alt-right for years, even when there was less of this. Chastising the woke left, he doesn't have much to talk about. If you go to Hoystory.com, type in David French's name, David French cannot condemn trans ideology. If you're under 18 and you believe and you have a penis and you believe you're a girl, your mom has a mental illness. If you're over 18, you've got the mental illness, or vice versa. That is probably one of the biggest issues that isn't talked nearly enough about in the mainstream media. And David French is just fine with that grotesque child abuse and maiming as long as the parents are doing it. He would not support a parent who snuffed out cigarettes on their kid's skin, or force their hands in the flames of a gas burner on a stove. But pretend you're the opposite sex and let's chop you up. He's fine with that. Stephen Miller should be a must follow. Red Steez on X/Twitter came back at him, and this is what he deserves and more. Tells David French, you attended a rally last week that flew Palestinian flags and hosted tents celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. You purposely sugarcoated and ignored that. I have defended you against these attacks going back 10 years. The influencer pundit right has an anti-Semitism problem. It's undeniable. And it is undeniable. But it is in no way institutionalized like the progressive left and the Democratic Party you now vote for. In media, in academia, everywhere. Should note, among elected Republicans, one or two maybe, Marjorie Taylor Greene's lost her absolute mind. Not that she had much to begin with. But the last prominent anti-Semite in the Republican Party was a guy named Peter King from Iowa, and the Republicans got rid of him. They stripped him of all his committee assignments, they marginalized him, and they worked to get him defeated. And he's gone. And the Democrats are embracing this. AOC, Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib, the whole squad. They are vicious anti-Semites. They are bigots. They're horrible people. And silence from David French. I mean, he may, if pressed, he may post one little tweet. I can't even guarantee that. But he's not going to dedicate his New York Times column to it. Said, Stephen Miller continues, no one, and this isn't the Stephen Miller who's in the White House, this is a different guy. No one told you to start defending or voting for the party where anti-Semitism is institutionalized. No one forced you to attend marches waving Palestinian flags. And no one forced you to attack people on the right who offered prayers and defended you. You could have said no, but you didn't. You're just another progressive New York Times op-ed writer now, and you've earned every bit of that title. Enjoy it. David French is lost. He's been lost for a while. Miller's right. French is wrong. And we can recognize that. Don't quote David French as a conservative. He's not. He's not anymore. He's hyper aware of what is on the what's happening on the conservative side and all its faults, but he has nothing to say for the excesses of the left. Okay, moving on. Arctic frost. Arctic frost. This came out earlier this week. The first part of it came out earlier this month. But wow. Just wow. Look, January 6th, very bad. But this is insane. This is not looking for people who stormed the Capitol that day. This is anybody who did election denial, or may have done election denial, or may have talked with somebody who did election denial, or maybe thought election denial. 400 GOP-linked individuals, phone records. You had judges saying that, for example, Ted Cruz couldn't be notified that they had requested and been denied, but they'd been requested his cell phone records for a year because they're afraid that Ted Cruz would destroy evidence. Ted Cruz is a lawyer. He used to be Solicitor General of the state of Texas. I don't think you can catch him doing that because he's stupid. But this is what they're going for. I mean, they were snooping for everything. Read somewhere, I'm not sure if it's in this article, but they were even looking for bank records of and this is in theory about the January 6th investigation. They were looking for bank records of a conservative PAC that didn't exist until a year later. Didn't even exist on January 6th. What purpose could it have been? This was a it makes fishing expedition. This was a trawling expedition. This was a drain the reservoir and look for the fish expedition. It was just, the breadth of it is insane. But they were all good with it. The Wall Street Journal had a nice piece, Kimberly Strassel. Can't make the subscribe now thing go away. I don't know what to tell you. Merrick Garland is probably one of the worst attorney generals in U.S. history. We're lucky he didn't get on the Supreme Court. He is such an extreme partisan. Just in how he went after any perceived enemy of the left or Joe Biden. Parents speaking at school board meetings, Catholics. He charged, he went after pro-lifers like they were mass murderers. He's a horrible attorney general. Should not have been. I think if Republicans knew how he would turn out, he never would have been confirmed. It's crazy. These weren't targeted subpoenas designed to further existing evidence. They are free-for-alls. One example from 10 days after Mr. Smith was appointed demands to target turnover, regardless of subject matter, all documents and communications to, from, with, or including any member, employee, or agent of the legislative branch. That's broad. And there's plenty of, protected stuff in there. Speech and debate clause, the internal deliberations of legislators. But he wants it. Or any member, employee, or agent of Donald J. Trump. Or any organization advocating in favor of his reelection. That is so broad. Yeah, here's the thing. America First Legal, a nonprofit law firm, said it got probed in this. They were looking for what they had done. It did not exist on January 6th, 2021. That was created later. How could that organization possibly have been involved with an attempt to steal the 2020 election? It didn't exist. As might be expected, the lack of limits inspired investigators to go wild. Consider a September 2022 email released by the House Judiciary Committee, which appears to have come from a Seattle FBI agent. The target was Ed Corrigan, president of the Conservative Partnership Institute, usually to be found teaching staffers about Senate procedure. According to the G-Man, Mr. Corrigan is pro-Putin and anti-Biden, wants to build up infrastructure to train people for civil war, and secretly controls the Freedom Caucus and has plans that are not good for the FBI. This, the agent reports, is viewed by some as treason. It's politics. We disagree. We have fundamental disagreements. Training people from civil war. Bullcrap. Bullcrap. What a load of utter garbage. But Strassel points out this relates to January 6th. How? It doesn't. It doesn't. You hear talk about the deep state. You hear talk about, people, running government who use that power for their own benefit and for their own political benefit. It exists. Can Trump root it out? I don't know. Were there? I don't think the right ever had similar control of the government. In fact, I welcome proof that they did. This stuff always, again, seems to go one way. Speaking of idiots, they released some stuff on, the final months of Joe Biden, and I talked about this at the time. I mentioned this with people. If Joe Biden wasn't capable of running for president, he wasn't capable of serving as president, because the running's easier, or should be easier. Biden strategist who basically refused to talk about Joe Biden's, lack of stamina, mental prowess, all that other sort of stuff. Why would he do that? Why would he be quiet? Well, because he would get $4 million cash bonus if Joe Biden won re-election. I kind of understand, but the money's good. But dedication to your country and the best interests of your country would be better. And when Joe Biden stepped down in the race, and he should have stepped down a year before. If the people around him hadn't been milking him, and they were, his son was milking him, his wife was milking him, and the power that, having him as president came, he probably should have been out of there after 2 years. Let Kamala Harris run it for 2 years. Not sure what would have been different. The word salads would have been a little more interesting, a little more extensive. But yeah, this is why you still had Biden at the end of his presidency. Which brings us to Scott Jennings, former Kentucky congressman. He is the only reason you would want to watch CNN, because the rest of it's just an absolute joke. But this I love. This is great. Watch it.
It's not about the pen. The auto pen has been used. Presidents, as you pointed out, used it. There's precedent for that. That's fine. The question is, did the president himself authorize or make the decision that led to the use of the auto pen? And what the committee found was that there were numerous instances where there was no real direct chain of evidence going from presidential decision-making to the use of the auto pen. And in the last 3 months of the Biden administration, mean, he was, I think we all acknowledge, and the reporting is very clear, in severe cognitive decline. And so the committee the committee, you don't agree he was in cognitive decline?
I do not, because there's no medical evidence to say that. Now, that's a political talking point for some of you on the right, but there's no evidence to point to that. Dr. Scott.
Do you know?
Dr. Scott, do you have evidence?
Like we needed a doctor for this. This was not subtle. His debate performance was not subtle. Okay? We have no medical evidence. We're seriously playing this game? Why? Why? What benefit does this guy? I have no idea who he is. Certainly a hack. But is anyone honestly selling this anymore? I don't think so.
Do you know why the president's physician took the Fifth Amendment before the committee?
No, the same reason why Republicans have taken the Fifth Amendment under oath.
Listen, if you're here to argue the sharpness of Joe Biden, I commend you on your effort.
I'm not here to argue that. I'm just saying there's no medical evidence to point there was some cognitive decline.
Do you have eyes and ears? I think you do.
I do.
So the committee found that in many instances,
I'm sorry. That's the best line. Do you have eyes and ears? I do. Use them. It's just, why do we pretend anymore? There's no reason to pretend anymore. Karine Jean-Pierre's out, selling her book, shilling for her book. I don't know. Worry about the term later. And people are just like, she was telling people, oh, he is so vigorous, I have trouble keeping up with him. No, you didn't. You were lying. We all knew you were lying. The press corps knew you were lying. But again, that White House press corps is invested in the Democratic Party. So they're not going to tell the truth about any of that. A little media wrap up here. Move on. Bill Kristol used to be one of the two editors of the Weekly Standard, along with, what's the other guy? I'm picturing him in my head. Bill Kristol and Fred Barnes. Bill Kristol has come out for a communist for mayor of New York City. The transformation is complete. He is not a conservative, probably was never a conservative. He will say whatever he needs to get people talking about him, following him, kissing ass. I don't know. But I'm not surprised. Bill Kristol, absolute joke. Let's move on. The Bulwark is a Never Trump leftist publication. They have hired Mark Hertling to be their military analyst. There's no clearer, sharper voice about the challenges we face in this moment. Mark is going to be a huge asset on a variety of our platforms. I'm thrilled. Just to give you an idea how knowledgeable this guy is, Lieutenant General, that's Brigadier General, Major General, Lieutenant, 3 stars. He had 3 stars. I don't know if he was Army or Air Force or what, but he's not very bright. You can be a C student and rise high in the ranks because you get things like this. This is from a few years ago. It made the rounds then. It was hilarious then. It's even more hilarious now.
If you're a gun collector or a gun aficionado and you want an AR-15, you can certainly buy one, and you should be able to buy one. The problem is when it gets in the hands of the wrong people.
Originally built for the battlefield, a defining characteristic of the AR-15 is the speed and power of the bullet.
Now those are single shots. If I wanted to fire this on full semi-automatic, all I do is keep firing. Now I won't probably hit the target when I do this, when we look at the target later on, but I'm going to fire about 5 shots.
Okay.
If you're a gun collector,
Full semi-automatic. Full semi-automatic. That's not a thing. He's also... I fired an AR-15 a lot. He doesn't have a whole lot of control of that thing. The idea... Jerry Michalek, who holds the world record for 12 shots on target from a revolver in less than 2 seconds, so that's with a reload, can shoot an AR-15 like you wouldn't believe. With enough training, anybody can shoot that better than he demonstrates in that video. But hey, he's got the credentials. He's not very bright. There's no such thing as full semi-automatic. It was semi-automatic before. And the first time he shot it, it was semi-automatic after. The rate at which he continues to pull that trigger, there's plenty of people who control it better. You can still get it on target that fast or faster if you practice, and if you're good at it. You practice, you can get better. He's just there selling the standard BS. What can I say? Moving on. This video starts with the one in the upper left up here with Nicole Wallace and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. This is notable because the other 8 screens are all from Nicole Wallace's show. We didn't even have to go anywhere other than Nicole Wallace's show to prove Nicole Wallace false. Again, take a look at this.
I haven't suggested that Donald Trump is Hitler. I wouldn't say
I don't think any Democrat has. I actually, and I think it's a smear that they project back on to critics. What is the natural extension, Justin, if he pursues this to Harvard and beyond?
There was an authoritarian leader several decades back called Adolf Hitler. Hitler came to power and the scientists left.
The military survive in that climate.
In the same way that it happened in Russia with Stalin, the same way it happened with Hitler, eventually you get generals and admirals that are in there that only tell the leader what he or she wants to hear.
To the extent that the rule of law and an assault on the rule of law was an obscure, intangible thing, we're now seeing it in action.
If you look back in history, you can see very similar parallels that took place in other countries that really went down that authoritarian road, including in pre-World War II Nazi Germany, when Hitler and Nazi officials basically took over Frankfurt University, which was the bastion of independent thought and progressive thinking and independent thinking, which is what Hitler didn't want. And so again, this is what authoritarians do. They try to control all of the aspects of social life.
When Trump talks about peace and Putin talks about peace, it's autocrats getting their way. That's it. And Mussolini and Hitler said they were being the purveyors of peace.
I resisted for a long time analogies to Hitler's Germany. I've got in my Substack today, though, it's really uncanny. The same episode where Hitler, early in his tenure, before he's totally taken over the government, some local prosecutors go after his brown shirts. And they convict them, sends them, and then he releases them. It's really the same thing.
Throwback to what?
Yeah.
Throwback to what? Poisoning the blood.
I mean, that is literally Hitlerian rhetoric.
Right.
And
what do people think of what happened to us? The parallel here is to maybe show up on the shores and say, no, we'll go with Hitler. I mean, what do they think about the switching of sides with the turning of who occupies the Oval Office? I believe every voter who casts a vote, regardless of who they vote for, has to know that Donald Trump believes Hitler did some good things.
Can't make it up. It's like, do they understand that this is all recorded? That people can access this, that people saw it. Why even bother to make this claim? I mean, it's, and there's plenty of other examples that aren't her show, where this sort of thing has occurred. But this is just on her show. She supposedly used to be a conservative too. Mainstream media, they're too many of them are just horrible. This last one, this was pointed out by Jim Garrity as well today. This is Sarah Pequeño. She is a columnist at USA Today. Apparently, in her world, not the real world, Republicans are responsible for the government shutdown. They control the House, the Senate, and the White House, the Senate, and the House. It's on them. Well, it takes 60 votes to get it through the Senate, and they don't have 60 votes in the Senate for this. They need a handful of Democrats to cross over to fund this. Now, what the Republicans have proposed is the same thing every time when the roles were reversed, when the Democrats were in charge. Fair enough. Republicans did the same thing. They said, "Oh no, we'll sign us on a CR if we get A, B, and C." Democrats are doing it this time. In the past, when Republicans were refusing to sign on to just a CR and without the A, B, and C stuff, without the additional demands, the media and Democrats rightly said, "Look, it's the Republicans holding this up." Now the roles are reversed, and it's still the Republicans. It's always nice that it's always the Republicans. You can always just go with that one line. It's dishonest. It's a lie. Once upon a time, you had to, newspapers wouldn't print this stuff if it was demonstrably false. When I worked at the San Diego Union Tribune, I brought this up once, and we, a column, and we ran it anyways. The late Art Madrid, who was mayor of the suburb of La Mesa, town I grew up in, forever. The guy had been mayor forever. He wrote an op-ed in the submitted to the Union Tribune, and I was laying it out, and I read everything I put on the page. Then I had time to do it. It wasn't quite my job, but I needed to know what was being said as I laid out the pages. But he made the claim that at the time it was recent, this bridge collapse, I believe it was either in Minnesota or Michigan, that killed some people, was a result of failure of the government to fund infrastructure. Now, you can debate about the government, how much the government should fund infrastructure, what the priorities on infrastructure should be. Should it be high-speed rail? No, it shouldn't. Or should it be roads, or should it be bridges, or whatnot? The problem is we knew at the time that bridge collapsed, not because it was in disrepair. It had a fatal flaw. It was designed with a fatal flaw. They were actually, upgrading and repairing the bridge at the time. If they had finished that, if they'd done that a year earlier and finished it, the bridge still would have collapsed because the design was faulty. And I pointed that out, and I said, "Look, do it some other way." And after consultation, no, we're going to go with it as it is. That's his opinion. Well, you can have your opinion, can't have your own facts. But there's a lot of this sort of thing going around, again, in our mainstream media. Happy Halloween. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me. Hope to hear from you people soon. I hope you're enjoying these. I'm trying to get better at them. We'll see how everything turns out. Thanks for joining me. Bye.